What does it take to rise above expectations, chart a path through resistance, and lead with conviction even when the world presumes you'll fail? Throughout history, women have faced boundaries drawn in ink and stone, societies that said leadership wasn't for them and power belonged elsewhere. Yet, across different eras, continents, and cultures, some women refused to accept those limits. They shattered norms, confounded critics, and governed in times of turmoil. Today, discover the stories of 5 extraordinary female leaders, each of whom defied the odds and changed the course of history. First, let's set the scene. The stories of female leaders often emerge against backdrops of adversity. Sometimes they must outwit rivals in their own families. Other times, standing up against institutional prejudice or the expectations of an entire nation. What unites these remarkable women is not just authority, but the audacity to fight for it, command it, and ultimately redefine what's possible for those who follow. Let's begin our journey in ancient Egypt, where the shadow of mighty pyramids falls over a young queen destined for legend. Cleopatra II, perhaps history's most iconic female monarch, ascended to the throne of Egypt at just 18. As the last active pharaoh of the Ptolemaic dynasty, her reign was threatened from the start, not only by scheming courtiers and family members who sought power, but by the looming might of Rome. Written records from the time often reflect the biases of Roman historians who sought to diminish her accomplishments by painting her as little more than a seductress. But beneath this slander, a powerful truth persists. Cleopatra was fiercely intelligent, multilingual, and willing to engage Rome's leaders, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, not only for alliances but for survival. She transformed Egypt into a center of culture and learning, and her fierce efforts to preserve her nation's independence, even in an age dominated by men and empires, have cemented her place as a symbol of resilience, wit, and unyielding ambition. Centuries later, her legacy endures as a beacon for those who challenge the status quo. Jumping forward to the modern era, we land amidst the conservative corridors of British power, where another formidable woman would battle prejudice on a different kind of battlefield. Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady, became the United Kingdom's first, and so far only, female Prime Minister in 1979. Her rise was anything but easy. In a political landscape dominated by men, Thatcher faced relentless scrutiny, not just for her policies, but for her very presence as a woman in leadership. Critics doubted her, opponents derided her, but Thatcher pressed on. She championed free market reforms, navigated the tumult of the Falklands War, and led Britain through periods of economic hardship. Her uncompromising approach won both admirers and detractors, but what cannot be denied is her courage to defy expectations at every turn. She forged her path with sharp wit, unwavering resolve, and a deep sense of conviction, forever changing the face of British politics. Let's now travel east to 18th century Russia. Here, Catherine the Great, born a minor German princess, would seize an empire and become its most celebrated ruler. After arriving in Russia as a teenager and marrying the future Tsar Peter III, Catherine found herself in an alien land, surrounded by hostile court factions and an uncertain future. Rather than submit, she orchestrated a coup, overthrew her unpopular husband, and ruled as empress for over 3 decades. But Catherine's ambitions did not end with the throne. She set out on a relentless campaign to modernize Russia, bringing in Enlightenment ideas, reforming laws, championing education, and expanding Russian territory to become a force in Europe. Through her vision, ruthlessness at times, and an uncanny ability to navigate palace intrigue, Catherine secured her legacy as both a builder of empires and a powerful symbol of female leadership. The 21st century brings us to Germany, where Angela Merkel would alter the course of Europe as its most powerful woman. Formerly a research scientist raised in East Germany, Merkel entered politics following the collapse of communism. In 2005, she became the nation's first female chancellor at a time when both Germany and the wider European Union faced unprecedented challenges. Merkel guided Germany through the global financial crisis, responding with pragmatism and a steady hand. Her style was analytical, unflustered, and firm, a contrast to the image of bombastic leadership that often dominated headlines. Under Merkel, Germany became Europe's anchor in times of crisis, from economic upheaval to an influx of refugees seeking asylum. She broke barriers not through show of force, but with unassuming brilliance and quiet determination. Angela Merkel's leadership reshaped notions of power, not as bluster, but as responsibility fulfilled with clarity, empathy, and tenacity. Our final stop is Indonesia, at the dawn of the 20th century, where Raden Ajeng Kartini dared to dream of a different future. Born into Javanese nobility, Kartini's life was circumscribed by rigid traditions. Colonial rule and local customs decreed her place as a woman without a voice, destined for seclusion, and silence. But Kartini was determined to break through the barriers that bound not only her, but all Indonesian women. In secret, she corresponded with Dutch feminists and intellectuals, advocating for women's education and human rights. Over time, her letters became a manifesto for social reform. Though her life was tragically short, Kartini's words ignited a movement, inspiring generations to demand equality and autonomy. Today, she is remembered as a national heroine, proof that transformation begins with the courage to speak, even in whispers, against the storm. What impact did these women leave on our world? Across continents and centuries, Cleopatra, Margaret Thatcher, Catherine the Great, Angela Merkel, and R.A. Kartini forced societies to confront their own restrictions, each asserting that the mantle of leadership knows no gender. Their triumphs and tribulations remind us that progress rarely comes easily. It is forged by those willing to challenge inherited wisdom, to strive beyond their generation's expectations, and to accept the costs of defiance. So, what barriers, spoken or unspoken, do you see today? What limits have others set for you, or for those you care about? The stories of these women prove that the status quo is not destiny. Each of us holds the power to question, to act, and to inspire change. Let their lives be a call to action. Challenge the rules that hold you back, lift up those whose voices go unheard, and lead with the courage to shape the world anew. The path might be difficult, the cost high, but history waits for boldness. Will you rise to the challenge?